stay and listen if you are interested in unlocking the hidden value in your plantation's waste to massively boost your soil health and yields. We are going to reveal the absolute best, scientifically proven combination of treatments at the end of this discussion, so stick around. Welcome to this podcast episode brought to you by AGS Agriculture Global Solutions, your partner for better farming practices.
And today we are tackling a pretty massive bottleneck that's probably sitting right in the middle of your plantation right now, which is empty fruit bunch, or EFB.
Yeah, I mean, we all deal with it, right, on a massive scale. And as an experienced farmer, you already know the inherent value of returning biomass to the soil. But today, we want to focus entirely on exactly how to process that material for maximum yield and, well, minimum cost.
Right. We're looking at transforming it from this bulky, often frustrating byproduct into genuinely high-value soil amendments.
And the foundation for our discussion today is a brand new study published in 2025, so making it just a year old now in 2026.
Exactly. And the research was conducted by Dorcas Blankson from the University of Cape Coast.
Now, wait a minute. Cape Coast is in Ghana, so we're talking about a study from West Africa. Let's clear that up right away, because how does a soil study from another continent translate to a plantation here in Malaysia?
That is a vital question to ask before we even look at any data. So while this research was indeed conducted in Ghana, the study specifically tested highly weathered tropical soils, namely agrosols and ferrosols.
Okay, got it.
And they ran these tests under conditions of heavy, relentless rainfall and high daily temperatures.
So for those of us without a geology degree, we're basically talking about those red, rusty, clay-heavy soils, right? Where heavy monsoon rains have basically washed all the free nutrients away over thousands of years.
Yep, that captures the reality perfectly. It's the kind of soil that gets incredibly acidic and stubborn.
Right.
And if you look at the soil chemistry of those West African test plots, I mean, the rapid degradation of organic matter, the severe nutrient leaching, those stubborn acidity profiles,
They're the same.
exactly identical to the soil conditions and degradation challenges you face in Malaysia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the environmental parallels are undeniable. So this means the mechanisms they uncovered and the actionable application rates they proved are highly relevant and immediately actionable for your plantations.
Well, that real-world tropical agronomy is exactly why we selected this research to focus on today. So let's start with the raw material bottleneck itself.
Right, it's piles.
Yeah, we have massive piles of raw EFB at the mill. And applying it directly to the field is something many have tried over the years, but doing so is essentially leaving money on the table. It's incredibly inefficient.
It really is. It comes down to a battle of logistics and biology.
How so?
Well, logistically, we all know raw EFB is immensely bulky. It holds a tremendous amount of moisture.
Right.
And that makes it incredibly expensive, fuel-intensive, and labor-intensive just to load onto a tractor and transport across bumpy plantation roads.
Oh, absolutely. It's a nightmare.
But the biological problem is even more restrictive. It comes down to its carbon and nitrogen ratio, or CN ratio.
Okay.
Raw EFB has an exceptionally high CN ratio, meaning it has a mountain of carbon, but
Barely any nitrogen to speak of, exactly.
So what happens when that hits the ground?
Well, when you apply raw material with a high CN ratio to the soil surface, the soil microbes wake up. They recognize all that carbon as a massive food source.
Okay, sounds good so far.
But to actually digest and break down the complex lignin and cellulose in the EFB, those microbes require nitrogen as an energy source.
And the EFB doesn't have it.
Exactly. Because the raw EFB does not contain enough nitrogen of its own, the microbes actively scavenge and steal the available nitrogen from your surrounding soil.
Wait, so if I dump raw EFB on my field to try and help my palms, I'm actually starving my trees in the short term?
Yes.
So the microbes are basically acting like a demolition crew that shows up to break down a building, but they forgot to pack their own lunch, so they raid the palm tree's nitrogen fridge?
That is a fantastic way to visualize it. Yes, they raid the fridge, and this temporarily locks up the nitrogen your palms desperately need for frond development and bunch production.
The nutrients within the EFB are trapped inside a complex woody structure, and the soil pays the price trying to unlock it.
And that brings us to the first transformation method we need to discuss, which is composting. Because composting changes that biological equation completely.
Right. It pre-digests the material before it ever hits your field.
But the study makes it clear that we shouldn't just, throw the EFB in a giant pile behind the mill, walk away for 6 months and hope for the best, right?
Definitely not.
So how does composting specifically change this equation for the better? Like, what is the actual recipe here?
Well, the study's findings are very clear on this. To properly reduce the volume, stop the nitrogen theft and concentrate the nutrients, you shouldn't just compost EFB all by itself.
Okay.
You need a powerful catalyst. The actionable advice here is co-compost.
Right, composting. Got it.
Right. The study recommends a very specific, proven recipe. Co-compost your EFB with poultry manure at a 1 to 1.5 ratio by weight.
Let me make sure I have that math right.
Yeah.
1 part EFB to 1.5 parts poultry manure by weight. Why that specific heavy mix of manure?
Because poultry manure is incredibly dense in nitrogen. When you blend the bulky EFB with the manure at that exact 1 to 1.5 ratio, it drastically lowers the overall CN ratio of the entire pile to under 20.
Under 20, that's the magic number.
It is the biological tipping point. At a CN ratio below 20, the microbes have all the nitrogen they need right there in the pile.
So they don't raid the fridge.
Exactly. They no longer need to rob the soil. Instead, the finished compost becomes a net contributor, releasing nitrogen into the soil almost immediately upon application.
That's incredible.
And furthermore, this specific ratio significantly ramps up the total nitrogen and ash content of the finished compost, creating a highly potent organic fertilizer.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
Whenever we talk about bringing in massive amounts of outside animal waste, especially poultry manure, farmers immediately worry about soil contamination. Heavy metals, pathogens, you name it. Are we just trading a nutrient problem for a toxicity problem?
That is a completely valid concern for any plantation manager. However, the study tested for this extensively over the course of the experiment.
And what did they find?
They found that processing the EFB with poultry manure at this specific ratio and allowing it to fully cure resulted in a compost with completely safe, totally negligible levels of heavy metals.
Oh, that's reassuring.
Yeah, the high heat of the composting process handles the pathogens, and the dilution handles the metals. It is a highly efficient, clean nutrient source.
Quick note. Tell us in the comments what oil palm topics you want next, so make episodes on what matters to you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you are not subscribed yet, give this episode a like, and write a comment. This helps our YouTube channel so we continue transforming oil palm scientific articles into language that is easy to understand and digest.
Right, so getting back to the compost, it really is a clean source.
Okay, so compost solves the immediate, fast-acting nutrient bottleneck. It reduces the transport volume because it shrinks down, it stops the microbes from raiding the nitrogen fridge, and it delivers a fast-acting, safe organic fertilizer.
Exactly.
But, as we know, our tropical soils often suffer from long-term systemic structural issues.
Right.
High acidity, intense nutrient leaching from those heavy monsoon rains. Compost is great, but it breaks down and vanishes quickly in our tropical heat.
That is the main limitation of compost.
Yeah.
I mean, it feeds the soil biology in the short term, and it provides a great nutrient spike, but it doesn't permanently restructure the soil matrix. For that long-term physical and chemical stability that actually change the architecture of your ground, we naturally have to look at the second transformation method explored in the research, which is creating EFB biochar.
Ah, biochar. So let's discuss the mechanics of creating biochar.
Sure. So it involves taking your raw EFB and heating it to high temperatures in a highly controlled, very low oxygen environment.
Right, and this thermochemical process is called pyrolysis.
Yes, pyrolysis. And because you are severely starving the fire of oxygen, the biomass doesn't just combust and turn into white ash like it would if you tossed it into an open bonfire.
Right.
Instead, the moisture and the volatile organic compounds burn off, and what you are left with is a highly porous, incredibly stable, carbon-rich skeletal material.
So if you look at it under a microscope, it essentially looks like a microscopic sponge made out of pure carbon.
A very alkaline sponge, actually.
Oh, alkaline.
Yeah, in the study, they found that EFB biochar acts as a powerful liming agent. As we discussed earlier, highly weathered tropical soils across Malaysia are naturally acidic.
Very acidic, yeah.
And this soil acidity severely restricts root growth. And worse, it chemically binds up essential nutrients, so the palms simply cannot absorb them no matter how much fertilizer you apply.
Right.
When the researchers applied the EFB biochar, it significantly raised the pH of these stubborn tropical soils.
By the way, whenever you are making input decisions to correct deficiencies or adjust pH, soil testing for acidity and nutrient content is essential. And remember that leaf testing is equally important to see what the palms are actually absorbing.
Absolutely. You always want solid laboratory data driving your input decisions, otherwise you're just guessing out there.
Exactly.
But going back to the pH adjustment, when you fix the pH using the biochar, you fundamentally alter the soil chemistry.
You essentially unlock the pantry door that the acid had bolted shut.
Not just to unlock the pantry, but literally rebuild the shelves.
Wow.
Yeah, by raising the pH, the biochar fundamentally increased the availability of phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and magnesium in the soil.
That's huge.
It broke the chemical chains holding those nutrients back, making them freely available in the soil solution for the roots to take up.
But let me push back hard on this for a second. This sounds amazing on paper, but out in the real world, is all biochar created equal? Because I can easily imagine a farmer hearing this, digging a big trench, throwing in a mountain of EFB, setting it on fire, and throwing some dirt on top to smother it. Are there hidden risks if someone decides to just start making this on the farm using rudimentary methods?
That is a phenomenal question, and it highlights a critical, bold print warning in the study.
Okay, what is it?
No, all biochar is absolutely not created equal, and DIY trench methods are highly risky.
Really?
Yes. The researchers specifically tested biochar produced in basic continuous rotary reactors and traditional simple kilns. And they found that these basic methods can cause the biochar to accumulate unsafe, even dangerous levels of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs.
PAHs, wow. Those are highly toxic carcinogenic compounds. You definitely do not want to be spreading those across the plantation. Why do they form in a simple kiln but not a good one?
They form as a byproduct during the pyrolysis process itself. As the biomass heats up, it releases dense, smoky gases. If those gases are not properly vented and completely separated from the solid material, a dangerous reaction happens. As the chamber eventually cools down, those toxic gases condense right back onto the surface of the biochar sponge we talked about earlier.
Oh, that makes total sense. They just settle right back into the pores.
Precisely. So the actionable advice and the strict instruction for the farmer here is this. If you are producing or buying EFB biochar, you must ensure it is made using an improved kiln design.
Noted.
The engineering must strictly separate the pyrolysis gases from the biochar during the burn to keep the toxicant levels completely safe.
That is a vital takeaway that could save a plantation from a massive contamination headache. You cannot just smolder a pile of EFB in a ditch and call it a day. It requires proper engineering.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have explored the fast-acting, nutrient-dense benefits of compost, and we understand the long-lasting, structural, pH-balancing benefits of clean biochar.
Which brings us to the core question of the study, and really the promise we made at the start of this discussion. What is the ultimate scientifically proven combination of both?
Right, because compost gives us a quick injection of nutrients, but it burns up fast in the tropical heat. Biochar gives us a permanent sponge, but it's empty to start with.
Right, it's a blank slate.
If I'm a farmer, I don't want to choose between fast food and an empty pantry. What happens if I charge the biochar sponge with the compost?
The results are staggering. The study ran extensive multi-cycle field experiments testing various loading capacities.
Okay.
They tried sole applications of just biochar, sole applications of just compost, and various combinations of the two.
And what was the winner?
The ultimate synergy, the absolute golden ratio they discovered for highly weathered soils, was applying exactly 10 tons per hectare of EFB biochar combined with 20 tons per hectare of EFB compost.
Wait a second. 10 tons per hectare of biochar plus 20 tons per hectare of compost.
That's right.
That is 30 total tons of material per hectare. How on earth does a smallholder move that much weight?
That sounds like a logistical nightmare and a massive labor cost. Is that really practical?
I mean, it is a massive heavy lift. There is no denying the logistical challenge there. However, you have to view this not as a routine monthly fertilizer application, but as a fundamental one-time capital improvement to your soil architecture.
A one-time fix.
Exactly. Let's look at what this specific 30-ton combination actually did to the ground. First, it drastically increased the soil's carbon management index, or CMI.
Okay, and for those keeping track of soil metrics, the CMI is basically a report card for how well your soil is balancing its carbon reserves, right?
Yeah.
Both the stable carbon that provides the physical structure and the active carbon that feeds the microbial life.
Spot on. A high CMI means a highly robust, deeply resilient soil. But it didn't just change the invisible chemistry, it physically changed the architecture of the earth.
How so?
This 10 and 20 combination significantly lowered the soil's bulk density, which means the soil became far less compacted. It became fluffier, allowing those delicate feeder roots to penetrate deeper into the profile with far less mechanical resistance.
Exactly. And because of that newly improved, fluffier pore structure, the soil saw a massive increase in water retention at field capacity.
Ah, so it holds water better?
The amended soil literally acted like a giant underground reservoir.
Wow.
In our tropical climates, where you can swing violently from heavy monsoon rains to intense, prolonged dry spells, holding onto water within the root zone is vital for maintaining steady bunch production and avoiding drought stress.
Now, the study actually measured crop yields using okra as a test crop, right? And they saw massive yield increases that were sustained over multiple cropping cycles.
It did.
But let's translate this directly for our listeners because okra is great, but we are growing oil palm here.
Right, right. Well, the translation to palm physiology is direct and incredibly powerful. When you look at the underlying mechanisms, the fundamental upgrades to soil physical fertility, the increased root penetration from the lower bulk density, the expanded water holding capacity,
Or good stuff.
all of it. And specifically, the massive increase in phosphorus use efficiency. These are the exact physiological drivers that lead to higher bunch production in your palms.
Right. Because phosphorus is notoriously difficult to manage in acidic tropical clays because it gets locked away so quickly.
Precisely. This 10 tons of biochar and 20 tons of compost combination keeps that phosphorus available to the palm over the long haul.
It is essentially drought-proofing and future-proofing the plantation's root zone in one massive combined application.
Exactly.
And there was a bonus environmental benefit mentioned in the research as well, wasn't there? Something that goes beyond just the farm gate.
A remarkable one, actually. In modern agriculture, we are increasingly conscious of our environmental footprint. The researchers tracked greenhouse gas, or GHG, emissions emitting from the amended soils. They found that this specific combination of biochar and compost remarkably reduced GHG emissions, specifically cutting nitrous oxide and carbon dioxide emissions escaping from the soil by over 50% compared to unamended soils.
Over 50%. That is incredible.
It really is.
I mean, the biochar is literally locking that carbon into the ground permanently where it belongs, while the compost efficiently cycles the nutrients without off-gassing into the atmosphere.
Yeah, it is a massive win-win.
So we have the science, we understand the deep soil mechanics, and we have the exact golden ratio. Now we must translate this into exactly what you, the listener, should do on your plantation tomorrow morning.
It comes down to two clear, immediate actions. Action 1, reevaluate your mill waste immediately. Start a co-composting pile.
Don't just leave it.
Right, do not let that EFB sit idle, and do not apply it raw. Mix your EFB with poultry manure at a 1 to 1.5 ratio by weight to create a safe, high-nitrogen, low-CN compost.
And action 2, plan the logistics for a combined application strategy. When you are ready to make a major structural improvement to a block, aim for that proven synergy.
Yes.
You want 10 tons per hectare of clean, properly produced biochar from an improved kiln and 20 tons per hectare of your new co-compost. That is how you lock in long-term drought resilience and massive nutrient efficiency.
Now, implementing a new processing and application regime of this magnitude sounds daunting. It requires tracking logistics, adjusting application rates, and monitoring soil responses carefully.
Sure.
But the good news is, you absolutely do not have to figure all of this out alone.
That's right, because you can register on CropDrive.ai. The innovative artificial intelligence AI guides fertilization and soil health step by step, and Palmyra answers your specific plantation questions step by step. Built by an international team specifically for Malaysian smallholders, this tool is unique worldwide and costs a tiny fraction of what a human consultant would charge.
Furthermore, when you get those lab soil or leaf results we mentioned earlier, CropDrive helps interpret them instantly, telling you exactly what your palms need based on the data.
It's so helpful.
We really encourage you to join the hundreds of Malaysian smallholders who are already using CropDrive to raise their income and cut costs. It takes the guesswork out of complex agronomic transitions, like moving 30 tons of material.
It really is a game changer for managing logistics and soil health. So, as we wrap up today's discussion, I want to leave you with a completely different angle to think about as you walk your rows this week.
Right.
We talked about cutting greenhouse gases by over 50% today. Right now, carbon credit markets are exploding globally. If you're sequestering 10 tons of pure biochar carbon per hectare permanently into your soil, you aren't just farming oil palm anymore.
That's true.
You might be sitting on a highly lucrative carbon sink. Who will be the first smallholder in your district to start getting paid for the air they clean, not just the oil they produce?
It is a fascinating frontier for plantation management.
Remember to visit our AI farming assistant at CropDrive.ai to learn more on how to increase your oil palm yields and incomes. Thanks for listening.